Thank you to my newest patron, Point Curation. I appreciate your generosity, and as always, you can reach me with any questions or concerns via Patreon PM, Minds.com, or Twitter at A Helping Hand for Me. Every dollar helps, every dollar is appreciated, and every pledge of $10 or more will earn you a permanent spot in my video credits. To all others who would rather support me in a different way, my horror anthology, Pleasant Nightmares, is available now on Amazon Kindle and in paperback. Links in the description. Until recently, I was under the impression that the modern faces of feminism and social justice were strictly Western cultural phenomena, or at the very least, exclusive to the First World, if for nothing else than the fact that Third World countries tend to have real problems, far beyond manufactured outrage over microaggressions and white privilege. I was of the reasonable assumption that, as a woman, having to worry about random people throwing battery acid in your face for not covering it in public would make you less inclined to complain about something as trivial as manspreading. I assumed that, as a black person, the fear of being enslaved and or roasted alive by Islamic extremists would curb the inclination to complain about white-splaining, especially since neither of these things are tolerated in white Western cultures. If anyone would understand that the SJWs complaining of white supremacist capitalist patriarchy are barking up the wrong tree, I assumed it would be these people who suffer real social injustices every day of their lives. But it seems that I was wrong. It seems that global communication does not necessarily promote global understanding, and that the stupidity of any one culture can very well spread like an infection even in the least conducive of circumstances. It's a trend that has made me reevaluate my respect for a person I've been following for at least the past several years, an outspoken atheist and ex-Muslim living in Nigeria. Regardless of your stance on religion, he had courage that could not be denied, because he specifically and consistently addressed other Muslims living near him, and to say the things he said on a daily basis put him in very real danger of dying at the hands of those who would sooner kill an infidel than engage him in any productive form of discussion. Nevertheless, he stood up for what he believed at the cost of alienating himself and at the risk of losing his life. This is a man who seemed to understand what true racial oppression looks like. He was no stranger to making racially charged posts, but not like the social justice tripe we frequently see on this side of the planet. None of this reading between the lines for subtleties bullshit. No, these posts had to do with the current torture, murder, and enslavement of black African natives by their Islamic oppressors in the Middle East. Crimes that Western media tends to ignore for fear that their actions will be associated with those they deem marginalized people of color in our own society. Just as they tend to ignore or mischaracterize the benevolent dispositions of white people who attempt to build bridges of racial understanding for fear that it will compromise their narrative concerning white supremacy. It certainly makes their agenda a lot easier to achieve if they can convince their audience that white people have tails and eat brown babies. And yet, it would seem that even those who are faced with such harsh realities every single day can be swayed to ignore them if Western media spins enough bullshit. Because those are the precise sort of articles I've seen this man post lately. Race-baiting bullshit concerning ridiculously misinterpreted, if slightly off-color comments from Donald Trump, racial dating preferences from bigoted nobodies who affect nothing beyond themselves, demands for slavery reparations from no white people in particular, and post after post citing isolated incidents of police brutality as evidence for institutional racism. And even more disheartening than his evident support of this crap has been the response in his comments section. An overtly anti-white sentiment from his fellow Nigerians, religious or not, who seem ever more convinced that their welcome on Western shores would be one of white supremacist intolerance, despite the hell they already suffer at the hands of those who are not white in the slightest, and despite the complete absence of those forms of oppression in Western white countries. So it would seem that, against all odds, this fuck white people mentality has managed to spread across the globe, or is at least well on its way to doing so. And locally, to my lasting dismay, the United States is now harboring some of the most ridiculous black supremacist movements I've ever seen. Extrapolating from the stereotypical hatred of white Jesus, minus a proper understanding of that portrayal's origin, they now believe black people to be both the original Jews of the Middle East and the original rulers of ancient Egypt. And naturally, they seem to forget that those rulers of ancient Egypt were the original oppressors of the Jews. On top of that, they assert that every important figure in history was actually black, apart from infamous tyrants they naturally wouldn't wish to claim, and that their blackness is being covered up out of some white supremacist conspiracy. Some of them have even convinced themselves that black people are somehow responsible for virtually every culture on the planet, that the black people of today are descended from some hyper-intelligent race of super beings who created the other races of the world, and that the white albinoids were the creation of their supreme leader, which they, of course, lament as his one and only mistake. I referenced Mr. Metokur's video ridiculing this nonsense a little over 3 months ago, and it is to that video which I refer you again. He covered it more extensively than I care to, and with more flair than I could have managed. Both locally and abroad, all of this anti-white hysteria and brazen hypocrisy evidently owe their growing popularity to race-baiting columnists and correspondents in Western media outlets. Journalists who make no distinction between actual white supremacists and white people who are simply tired of being told that they should apologize for the color of their skin. Racist, delusional sacks of shit like this man right here, Damon Young. If ever anyone needed an example of someone who definitely feels entitled to speak to all white people on behalf of all black people simply because he is black, I certainly haven't found one more nauseating. King Spook, the narrator of my last horror fiction video, was the one who alerted me to this asshole's blog. A blog smugly titled, Very Smart Brothas, as only someone with such a glaring superiority complex could possibly name it. So let's have a look at what sorts of things Damon here deems very smart, shall we? I'll spare you the entire articles, because he's definitely not worth that much of your time. I'll just show you enough to demonstrate why. But if you insist on putting yourself through the headache, the entire garbage blog is linked in the description. Now, to be fair, some of these weren't actually written by Damon Young, but as editor-in-chief of this particular blog, they certainly passed with his approval, and they're definitely representative of the kind of garbage you can expect to see from him. Racists ranked. Get a load of this shit.
How you gonna check me, boo-boo, when we both use the same 30% off code to cop a polo sweater? Don't act like you finna leave this here register and go have lunch at the yacht club, motherfucker.
Motherfucker, 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 motherfucker.
You know, for a very smart brother, you seem to be going pretty far out of your way to make yourself sound like a soul-plane casting reject stereotype. For all of the black people in my audience, I want you to take note of this. This is how he thinks you talk. This is what he thinks it means to be black. In his brain, if you don't talk like this, you're not black enough.
Let me ask you a question.
What's good, Nika?
Alright, I'm really not interested in his perceptions of so-called racism, and he doesn't say anything here that you wouldn't expect someone like him to say. So again, I'm just going to save you some time and skip straight to his number 1, because it illustrates better than anything what he's all about, and why you shouldn't give a shit what he has to say. And keep in mind, the Klan only ranked number 6 on this asshole's list. Complicit white people, of course. Here's the thing that some white people haven't figured out about the Trump era. One day it will be over and we can see them. Like that Facebook post they might have made about kneeling NFL players being ungrateful. We saw that. That time someone said or did some patently racist shit and they didn't say or do anything. We saw that too. Yeah, well, here's the thing that racist sacks of shit like you haven't figured out about the age of social justice, boo-boo. That's going to end sooner or later as well. One day, white people are finally going to get sick of your shit. They're going to get tired of having to constantly apologize for things they never said or did to you simply based on the color of their skin. And they're going to realize that there is no pleasing you. They're going to realize that you don't actually want any kind of mutual respect, and that the only white people you deem worth your time are those who lick your boot out of penitent white guilt. And on that day, they'll see you too. All of those posts you made about white privilege, they saw those. And all of those tweets floating around calling white people devils, saying kill all white people, and you didn't say anything, they saw that too. Black folks who, though invited, probably wouldn't come to the cookout. Hashtag the cookout. That grand bastion of blackness where nobody ever reneges during spades, and the brown liquor, Popeye's chicken, and red Kool-Aid or McDonald's sweet tea never runs out. The cookout is a mythical place where all gathered in both Jesus and Allah's and, well, you get the point, and blackness's names to celebrate and extol the virtues of both the black experience and black existence. I mean, do I really need to say anything here? I repeat, this cringeworthy heap of stereotypes that would only be funny to him coming from another black person's mouth amounts to what he thinks it means to be black. Because if this doesn't somehow resonate with you on a spiritual level, you're not black enough in his eyes. That is literally what this article is all about. He goes on for several more paragraphs, piling on more stereotypes to his ridiculous hypothetical cookout, and then proceeds to list off black celebrities who would supposedly deny his invitation because they're somehow not black enough. And you social justice ass clowns wonder why so many black people remain in poverty. It's because anyone who dares to take a single step beyond the confines of this ridiculous box you've drawn for them will be considered an Uncle Tom, an outcast, a traitor, not black enough to retain the respect of other black people. Assholes like this are the ones who are holding your race back. A line-by-line response to the New York Times response to the backlash it received for publishing a Nazi puff piece. Okay, this one doesn't even need a response. First of all, because I don't think any of us here are interested in hearing him whine about Nazis, since we all know that any white person who does anything other than wear slave bondage is going to fall under that label in his book. Second, because this smug prick actually managed to get the attention of the fucking New York Times with nothing but his racist ranting. Not a shred of credibility was needed to get a response out of them. He just needed to be a butthurt black man with a proverbial megaphone in a political environment saturated with white guilt. The New York Times wasted their time and resources responding to this fucking clown. Time and resources that could have easily been spent on something more productive, and he doesn't even fucking appreciate it. He actually believes that his outrage alone makes him entitled to their attention, and in an environment of media moguls prepared to kiss his ass because of his race, why wouldn't he believe that? Again, he has no interest in mutual respect or productive discourse. He has no interest in facts or social nuance, and he certainly has no interest in peace. He only wishes to talk down to you from a soapbox like you're a fucking 5-year-old. He is the sort of monster that Western media outlets have made with this race-baiting nonsense. And the more exposure they give people like him, the more monsters like him there will be clogging the arteries of Western media. No white person throwing a tantrum like this would be given this much attention, certainly not in a respectful manner in any case. And if we're to establish actual equality, we need to stop giving it to him. Everything you need to know about Meghan Markle's level of blackness explained. Anyway, since Meghan Markle is black, her engagement to the prince and the upcoming wedding has been a popular topic of discussion today among the type of black people who care about these things. Naturally, there's been commentary about the historical and cultural significance of this happening, and also jokes about the invitation list to the pre- and post-wedding barbecues, the quality of potato salad to be served at said barbecues, whether Prince Harry can wobble, and if said barbecues are even going to happen. They better. Yeah, we're having a lot of fun with this. Although it kinda sorta sounds like a porn title, the blackening of Buckingham Palace is actually happening. Again, there's really nothing I can contribute here. The stereotypical bullshit speaks for itself. And even more than the cartoon of black people he's trying to paint, the fact that this narcissistic fuck formatted this piece as though he were having an interview with himself speaks volumes more to his demented character. He needs to be fitted for a straitjacket. Why the fuck is anyone paying attention to him? Is this how low we've sunk in this country? What hope is there of actually talking some sense into anyone who takes this moron seriously? I mean, just how many black people in this country are actually satisfied with clowns like him representing them and their interests? The 10 best games for black families to play during the holidays. This would be higher if more than 50% of black folks knew how to play this game. I'm always ashamed of black folks from HBCUs who can't play, but hey, such is life. Also, if you need a reason to fight a family member, Spades gives you the outlet. Just be on a different team and accuse them of renegging, or re-nigging if you're extra black, and square up with Uncle Junior. Alright, the truly stupid thing about this piece is that there's literally nothing about the core topic that's exclusive to black people or what he presumes to be black culture. Nothing at all. It's the kind of thing you'd expect to see in a Facebook group dedicated to middle-aged mom humor and Parade magazine cartoons. Harmless, toothless drivel, except in this case, absolutely caked in as many black stereotypes as he could possibly manage, as if that's somehow a clever and witty thing to do. Dear God, what a waste of my fucking life. I'm never going to get those precious seconds back. Alright, next. Do white people have cousins? What the fuck? What is cousin culture, you ask? It's existing in a family where, 1, cousins matter, and he throws a random semicolon in there trying to look smart, as if he actually understands how it's used. That's just precious. I guess that was the closest thing he could do to putting smart person problem glasses on his actual words to make them sound intelligent. 2, there's no real distinction between first, second, and third cousins, and 3, there are a few people who don't share any blood with you but are cousins too just because their asses are around all the time and you didn't even know they weren't technically related to you until you were like 25. White people, however, generally don't seem to have the same reverence for cousin culture. I live in Pittsburgh, so I practically have a PhD in shit white people do, and I can count on one hand the number of times I've heard a white person, "Oh, fuck off, Damon. Fuck right off." Are you fucking kidding me right now? You know what? Never mind the vacuous articles I've gone over prior to this, okay? Because with this piece, you've graduated from ordinary race-baiting bullshit to actual propaganda. What you're actually trying to say here is that white people are emotionless reptiles who simply don't form the kind of meaningful, soulful bonds that you seem to think are exclusive to black people. That's fucking bullshit. I have both black and white family, Damon, and there's a particular member of my black family who has called me cousin since we were both little. and I reciprocated because I didn't even know that we weren't really related until I learned that he was the nephew of my aunt's second husband, and was only related to me through their marriage, something I didn't find out until I was well into my teens. But I didn't stop calling him cousin after the fact. However, though I do love him like family and cherish all of our memories together, we rarely ever saw each other, mostly just on the holidays, and these days we see each other even less. But I've also had friends whose families were closely associated with my family since before I was born, Damon. People who aren't related to me at all, but I loved like they were my own. One of whom shared no racial similarities with me at all, but it broke my heart when we fell out of contact. I still remember his childhood phone number by heart, because there wasn't a single day when we were kids that I didn't dial it at least once, especially on weekends. I'm honestly not sure I'd be the person I am today without him, and yet I never called him cousin, nor did he call me cousin. Your special little word doesn't have any inherently deep meaning, you racist pile of shit. It is a cultural colloquialism, nothing more. And I'll admit that it does tend to be used more in black culture than in white culture, but the concept it describes is by no means alien to white people. This "we gotta treat everyone we love like family because everyone's out to get us" bullshit is nothing more than your attempt to dehumanize white people and justify your own bigotry. Fuck you, Damon. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart, and on behalf of every respectable black person I've ever known or loved, fuck you. And that's quite enough of your vapid, callous blog. I think I've demonstrated well enough just how full of shit you are. Alright, so who the fuck is Damon Young anyway? Well, apparently, Damon Young is the editor-in-chief of VSB and a columnist for GQ.com, and he's working on a book of essays to be published by Echo HarperCollins. Damon is busy. That's right, he's a columnist for GQ and has been for well over a year now. If a white person wrote shit like this about black people, you couldn't bury it deep enough to keep an employer from finding it and either terminating you or putting the kibosh on any pending application. But when it comes to racism against white people, no such standard exists, especially when they're a media outlet that fully intends to capitalize on the anti-white sentiment trending among their readership. So naturally, when you look this prick up on their website, you can expect to be greeted with much of the same. And how do they describe him? Pittsburgh native Damon Young is the editor-in-chief of Very Smart BROTHAS, VSB, and a professional black person. Wow. He enjoys selfies with his infant daughter, getting hurt playing pickup basketball, and unsolicited pancake dinners. Yeah, I can't imagine a more terrifying thought than someone like you being responsible for molding a young mind, Damon. If there was any justice in this world, this racist bullshit would be reason enough to remove her from your care. Anyway, what contributions has our professional black person made to GQ.com? Why, such gems as I don't give a damn about unity, Donald Trump's first 100 days is peak whiteness, Dave Chappelle didn't change with the times and that's the problem, things I'll never trust again after watching Get Out, Am I sick because I'm black, and white people need to be better. Now, feel free to let me know if I'm wrong here, as I'm admittedly unsure how credible these sources are, and would very much like to have these figures confirmed for the sake of my own career aspirations. But SimplyHired.com lists the average GQ magazine salary at $35,000 per year, and Payscale.com lists staff writer salaries in general between $29,000 and $63,000 per year, depending on position and tenure, the median falling in and around $41,500 per year. Damon has written a total of 21 articles for GQ since his debut on August 21, 2016. Placing the national average at about $40,000 per year, and entry-level estimated at a mere 2% less, that would put his earnings either at or slightly above the national average for his profession. And given their estimation for mid-career staff writers of 5 to 10 years experience, if he can retain his position until the next presidential election, he's likely looking at between $49,000 and $50,000 per year. And none of this is even to mention the revenue his blog may generate in that time, nor any profit from this pending deal he supposedly has with HarperCollins. The point of this is that he is most likely earning a decent living on his tenure with GQ, and with no place to go but up given current socio-political trends. And that's a career path he's carved out for himself with his racist, stereotypical, and ham-fisted opinion alone. An opinion which not only places him in no danger with his current employer, but one that they encourage and on which their contract with him was clearly based in the first place. He has been handed a platform from which to denigrate white people to the masses, a platform with a household name and a historical momentum comparable to that of the New York Times, in a time when to even deny your white privilege is tantamount to tattooing a swastika on your fucking forehead. A platform, mind you, that was handed to him by a white man who evidently has no problem throwing every member of his own race under the bus so long as it bodes well for his bottom line. The hardest part about maintaining a channel like mine, if you actually care about these issues, is that constantly observing the state of our social zeitgeist in search of material becomes mentally and emotionally exhausting. You can only see so much shit like this before you start to lose hope and feel defeated. That is the toll it takes on you to know just how many people there are out there who truly believe that you and your loved ones are somehow lesser human beings for the genetic circumstances of your birth. And for the life of me, from the black side of my heritage, I can't imagine what it must have been like in the days of the Underground Railroad or the March for Civil Rights. I cannot imagine what measure of strength it must have taken to hold on to hope in such a dismal situation. But for what little I understand of it, Damon Young understands even less. Not only does he fail to recognize the racism against blacks is no longer tolerated, not only does he fail to recognize that the media already does his work for him in sniffing out and stringing up actual racists in our society and in our government, he has also been given carte blanche on shitting on white people without merit beyond the court of public opinion, something for which he is undoubtedly paid handsomely and with no significant resistance or questioning of his credibility. And yet, he will still have you believe that he is oppressed for the color of his skin. I didn't think it could possibly get any more hopeless. But because of so many other racist pieces of shit like him given similar platforms, even those who truly do suffer racial oppression in a way that he never has and could never understand are starting to agree with him. And it makes me fear for the future of our world. Fuck Damon Young, fuck his blog, and fuck GQ for giving him the voice to continue this vicious cycle. If we keep on this path, people like you will be the reason our potential was squandered. People like you will be the reason we continue to kill each other over tribalistic bullshit. People like you will spell the doom of our species. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like what you saw here, have a look at my other videos and leave me your thoughts in the comments. If you support my message, then please like, favorite, and subscribe. If you'd like to help this channel improve, you can reach out to me on Twitter or on Facebook with any suggestions. And if you'd like to support me more directly, please consider following me on Patreon, links in the description. Thanks again, and I'll catch you all in my next video.